want to tell you about the most disturbing thing that ever happened to me. It started a few years ago on what should have been the perfect escape, a week-long Caribbean cruise with my girlfriend Rachel and her family. I was excited for everything: news, unlimited food, and carefree days on the water. It was my first cruise, and I couldn't have imagined a better way to relax. The ship felt like a floating resort: pools, music, drinks, and smiling faces everywhere. The first 2 days were incredible. Rachel and I spent hours exploring the decks, eating at different restaurants, and getting to know another couple, Leo and Hannah, who were staying just a few doors down. We instantly clicked, but on the third night, something changed. Something subtle. At first, a strange look, a missed dinner, unanswered knocks. Then one of them vanished. The first 2 days were everything I'd dreamed of: warm sun, endless laughter, and late-night drinks. We even befriended another couple, Leo and Hannah, staying just a few doors down from us. We clicked instantly. Every night we met for dinner and drinks, trading stories, jokes, even plans for future double dates back on land. They felt like old friends, but everything changed on the third night. After dinner, Rachel wanted to shower before we hit the ship's nightclub. I said I'd wait in the hallway and see if Leo and Hannah were around. I knocked on their door, but there was no answer. Assuming they were still at dinner, I leaned against the railing and scrolled through my phone. Then I saw Hannah coming down the hallway, alone. Her eyes were red and puffy, like she'd been crying. I asked if she was okay, but she just shook her head and mumbled, "I have to find Leo." She walked past me quickly, heading toward the elevators, vanishing around the corner. When Rachel was ready, we headed to the club as planned, expecting to find Leo and Hannah there. But they never showed. We didn't think too much of it at first. Couples argue on vacation. Maybe they needed space. But the next morning, when we knocked on their door, there was no response. We called their cabin phone. No answer. Figuring they were sleeping in, we went to breakfast without them. By lunch, Rachel was getting anxious. We still hadn't seen or heard from them. We went to guest services, asking if Leo or Hannah had been spotted. The staff was polite but tight-lipped. "We're sorry, but we can't give out information about other guests." Back in the hallway, we asked a housekeeper cleaning nearby rooms if she'd seen them. She hesitated, then said their "Do Not Disturb" sign had been on all day. She hadn't entered. That night, we tried again. Knocking, calling, nothing. The following morning, Rachel's parents went with us to guest services and insisted on a welfare check. Finally, 2 security officers accompanied us to Leo and Hannah's room. They knocked. No answer. After a minute, they unlocked the door and stepped inside. For a moment, everything was still. Then one of them stepped back out and asked us to step away from the hallway. We were shaken. Something was wrong. Later that evening, while returning to our cabin after dinner, I noticed a crew member standing at the far end of the hallway. He was watching us. When I met his eyes, he quickly turned and disappeared around the corner. At dinner, our usual waiter was replaced. When I asked about Leo and Hannah, the new waiter gave a tight smile and said, "It's best not to worry about other guests." That night, our door was ajar when we returned something I was sure hadn't been the case when we left. Nothing seemed to be missing or disturbed, but I had a gnawing sense of unease. I decided to go for a walk alone to clear my head. The ship was eerily quiet. Most passengers were asleep. As I passed a crew-only stairwell, I heard hushed voices speaking in a language I couldn't identify. I ducked behind a support beam and listened. I couldn't understand most of it, but I caught one name clearly, Leo. Then another voice, lower and urgent. "They know too much." My blood ran cold. Footsteps approached, and I quickly slipped away. That night, I didn't sleep. The next day, I came up with an excuse to request access to the security footage. I told the guest services agent I'd lost my wallet and wanted to know if it had been turned in. The woman behind the counter smiled too sweetly. "I'm sorry, sir. For security reasons, we can't share footage with guests." She handed me a form to fill out. I never got the email she promised. Around midday, I found myself wandering to the upper observation deck alone. It was usually packed, but today it was nearly empty. Just me and a few sunbathers. Then I noticed something strange, a crew member standing near the railing, scanning the horizon through binoculars. But he wasn't looking at the sea. He was watching the decks below. I followed his line of sight. Down below, 2 other crew members were wheeling a cart into the crew-only entrance near the galley. It was the same cart I'd seen the night before. I leaned over to get a better look when suddenly the man with the binoculars turned and looked straight at me. His expression didn't change, but I felt it like I'd been caught peeking behind a curtain. That evening, I decided to confront someone, anyone. I waited until I saw one of the security guards alone outside a staff door and asked point blank, "Where are Leo and Hannah?" The guard didn't even blink. "You should enjoy your vacation, sir. It's dangerous to meddle in ship operations." I was stunned. The coldness in his voice wasn't just dismissive, it was a warning. That night, I was awoken by a strange noise outside our cabin. I looked out the peephole and saw 2 men in crew uniforms wheeling a large laundry cart down the hallway. Their movements were odd, hurried, jittery. As they passed our door, I saw something slip from beneath the sheets piled atop the cart. A hand, pale, lifeless. One of the men noticed and quickly tucked it back under the sheets. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to yell, to run after them, but something in me froze. Instead, I turned and shook Rachel awake. We needed to leave. We packed that night and spent the rest of it fully clothed, waiting for the morning light. Every creak and knock outside made us flinch. When we disembarked, I tried to report what I'd seen to the port authorities. But cruise line representatives were everywhere, smiling, shepherding guests off the ship. Whenever I mentioned our missing friends, I was met with placating words and subtle deflections. Among other passengers, rumors began to swirl. Someone said they'd seen Leo and Hannah arguing near the pool deck. Another claimed to have heard screaming from their cabin. A few whispered that the couple had left the ship early at the last port, but no one had any proof. Back home, Rachel and I tried contacting Leo and Hannah's families. No one had heard from them. We emailed the cruise line repeatedly. At first, we got vague responses, then nothing. Finally, we received a letter from their legal department warning us not to spread damaging and speculative claims. Months passed. The police report led nowhere. The cruise line refused to comment. Eventually, the case was closed. The official line? Missing persons, presumed voluntary disappearance. But I know what I saw. Hannah alone, crying, looking for Leo. The hushed voices in the stairwell. The hand in the laundry cart. Something happened on that ship. Something dark. Something hidden. For months afterward, I pored over cruise ship incident reports trying to make sense of it. I found articles buried in forums and dark corners of the internet, stories of other missing passengers, strange disappearances, sudden staff transfers. Some people believed in an internal conspiracy, crew members involved in smuggling or organ harvesting. I didn't want to believe it, but after everything I saw, I couldn't rule it out. To this day, I still wake up drenched in sweat, haunted by the echo of those silent hallways and the crew members' unsettling smile. And I can't help but ask myself if the truth about what really happened on Deck 7 will ever come to light or if it's already been buried forever.